This is Raven, and I'm actually doing this YouTube broadcast from my desk. And that's a flavor of my desk. That was Coldplay, and that was Politic, and that's often a lot of what my articles are about. They're about politics and what actually goes on in politics and how the rest of us are actually affected by politics. The article that I recently wrote for the New England Informer.com, which is an online publication owned and ran by Doreen Wade, was entitled "The Coming Jobs Depression and Its Resolution." And since I know that we don't live in a culture that is very much into reading anymore, but prefers to get its information from places like YouTube and various other media outlets, which there's nothing wrong with, because I myself utilize YouTube and find it not only informative but even credible, and can see why it actually is part of the reason why the line between mainstream news information sources and alternative news information sources are breaking down, is because more and more of the alternative news information sources are actually giving real news. They're not giving a corporate spin or a political spin in order to save the face or promote a particular party or party line. Rather, it's from the left or the right. Instead, they're actually disseminating events as they really occur, as they really happened, and trying to express how those events affect the rest of us. That seems to be something that mainstream news information sources have forgotten. As you can guess, I'm not a professional. I'm not even a reporter. I'm actually a columnist, and I would say if you went online and you looked up the New England Informer, you would find me listed as a staff contributor. I mean, you'd find that my column is called "The Reality of Social Economics." Big word, but don't let it frighten you. And that's what I'm here to talk about today, the reality of social economics. And it's pretty much what my article, "The Coming Jobs Depression and Its Resolution," was on. And the idea that I put forth in the article was that our coming jobs depression will be due to corporate outsourcing and union opposition to creating a workforce consisting of provisional public workers. And what that means is workers that rely upon the government for employment in areas of public service possessing high turnover rates and limited advancement. And that these provisional workers would consist of individuals usually considered unemployable and willing to work for lower wages and less benefits than union workers or private contractors in order to rejoin the workforce. So they are not destined to become low-wage slaves under government control, either state or federal. They're not attempting to push unions or union workers out of jobs. What they are intended to do is to reduce the cost of paying for certain services that the government provides us with, not for free, but through payment of taxes. The problem with having union labor and private contractors involved in either state or federal government projects is that both tend to push up the cost of those projects, or maintenance in case of maintaining a park, which then pushes up the cost of our taxes. That's something unions won't tell you. They won't dare tell you that, well, my forcing the state of Indiana or the state of California to pay X amount of dollars for a job that I know costs less than what I'm demanding, is actually going to impact the taxpayers. But they're not going to complain to me about it, they're going to complain to you about it, and you need to take the heat for that. That's part of why our services throughout the country is breaking down. It's not just the outsourcing done by corporations, it's also the pressure on unions to pay wages that they know are unrealistic for various jobs. Yes, we all need a living wage, and I agree with that, but I don't believe in paying more for a job than it's actually worth. And right now, with the economic crisis that we're in, even though no one wants to really say that, even though we're actually going into a depression, which no one really wants to admit, instead what they're actually going to tell you is, well, it's a recession, it's the second recession. It's a depression is what it actually is. It's not a recession, it's a depression. What creating a provisional workforce would do is it would not only get people off of SSI, welfare, and various other state programs and put them to work and give them a chance to earn a dollar sign by their experience, thus removing them from the unemployment ranks and registers and onto the employment ranks and registers, is that it would make them more easily acceptable to employers. But as long as they're forced to volunteer, even if they have degrees and years of volunteer experience, which states that really you should hire me because I'm not coming to you just off the street and nothing to offer. I'm coming to you with volunteer experience and degrees or certifications, which means I'm actually really qualified for you to hire me. What that would do is it would lower the overhead costs of the employer. 2, it would make it easier to train that individual because they're already familiar with what is going on in a particular area, especially with one that they have years of volunteer experience in and a degree to back up the volunteer experience. Overall, if the employer was the government, either state, city, or fed, it would cause the payment of certain projects or certain types of maintenance to go down, to be decreased, which would mean our taxes would be decreased. And what the strategy would consist of would be, 1, that they be willing to work for 2/3 of what union employees and private contractors or subcontractors are willing to work for, provided that they're willing to leave SSI and welfare. 2, they would be subjected to a national standardization of wages, which I mentioned earlier. That would prevent them from running to San Francisco from Ohio to get paid more, and thus impacting social services here in San Francisco. 3, they would abstain from unions for the reasons I stated. 4, they would again accept a standardized health benefit agreement. 5, they would accept employment within service areas requiring continual maintenance and possessing a high labor turnover rate. These 5 things would actually prevent the maintenance of public amenities such as parks, roads, bus shelters, etc. from exceeding the federal level of affordability. And what that would do is it would reduce health hazards and prevent the crucial loss of social services. That even means services for the mentally ill and those dealing with various forms of addiction. These steps would also decrease expenses in the public sector and would make it possible for workers that are considered unemployable by regular employers to be hired into the public sector and perform labor in areas that would waste taxpayers' dollars by hiring skilled labor to perform non-skilled labor jobs. In other words, I'm not going to hire you to do a job that I know is only worth $9 and pay you $18 or $15 to do it. I'm going to hire someone that is willing to do the job for not 9 but 6, or actually hire them to do the job for 9 as opposed to 18 or 15. And what that is going to do is going to reduce the amount of money that we have to keep paying into SSI and welfare and other programs that provide monthly checks to those individuals. Believe me, this is not a harsh measure. Right now, this is actually a very smart measure for us to take, because it would reduce our unemployment rate and it would give unions competition and force them to cut back on their demands and be more realistic. It would actually attract businesses back into the states, because if they could also get a hold of these laborers, especially those businesses trying to start up and start growing and become competitive, that would actually provide the rest of us with employment. So don't let unions fool you. Don't let extreme individuals from the right fool you. Don't let extreme individuals from the left fool you. What this would actually do is it would help those who are unemployed, especially the long-term unemployed, leave welfare, leave SSI, get paid, get that payment on their resumes, on their job applications, and make them more desirable to employers. That's really all this would do. It's not going to sabotage the union. It's not going to cause you who are working to and are afraid of volunteers. That's the other thing. Those of you who are working and are afraid of, I believe it's called job substitution, where you are gotten rid of because they're bringing in volunteers to do the same job. What you're actually, if you were to actually say to your congressman or your senator, I want this, go to YouTube, listen about this article, go to New England Informer, read about the article, you would actually be saving your jobs. That's what you would actually be doing. So, this is Raven, and we'll talk to you at some other date and time concerning another article. As I said, if you want to read my articles, go to the newenglandinformer.com, and they will even give you a email address that I put out that you can contact me and tell me after reading the article or listening to me on YouTube what you actually thought about the article and the ideas put forth in the article. Like I said, I'm not for busting unions. I believe they have their place, but I believe that their place is not in the public sector. I believe their place is in the private sector, competing with private contractors in order to help keep businesses and corporations under control. So, I'll talk to you later.